Wingman Joker, thank you for listening to this channel and please support the channel. Please subscribe. Chapter 101, Zoe. It was late afternoon when the airplane landed at the main island's airport. Iris was watching her younger brother Victor with astonishment. He was already awake and was sitting on his seat with his maid, who was feeding him grapes by her hand. She has heard about debaucherous young masters, but she would have never imagined, not even in her wild fantasies, that her brother was one of them. Her father has told her about Lily. He said that she was Victor's personal maid. And he seems to be interested in her too. What the F***ck? What kind of family do I have? She wondered. The airplane door opened as Theodore entered the cabin. He had changed his casual clothes into something more formal, as he was going to meet the patriarch. "Let's go," he said, making Iris stand up slowly and adjust her dress. This was given to her by Luna. She has never worn something this fancy before and was nervous about damaging it. Victor stood up too, with Lily. He headed to the door and then went down the boarding stairs after Theodore. Then headed out of the airport. Wow, Iris was astonished after leaving the airport as she saw the towering island and the many high-rise buildings dotting its terrain. "Is this island really only for our family?" she asked as she looked around. "Yes," Theodore replied, "managing our international assets requires a lot of manpower, so there are more servants than family members here," he said as he turned to meet two men who were entering the airport, one old and the other about Victor's age. "Patrick, are you here to congratulate me on finding my lost daughter?" Theodore asked, then looked at the young man. "Oh, Ron, where did they decide to ship you to?" he asked, making Ron gush his teeth, in anger. Ron was sent to New Lure City. He will be supervising the family business there. "I am here to send him off," Patrick said while putting his hand on his son's shoulders, pushing him to bow. His position in the family has become much lower than Theodore, and Victor, who was busy picking his nose. "Ah, Cousin Ron, is that you? I didn't know you without your nose pointing to the sky," Victor said to Ron as he threw something at him, then turned to Patrick and bowed slightly. "Uncle Patrick, this young one is pleased to see you again," Victor said with a smirk, making Patrick wish to kick his ass. "Can't you just move on? Do you have to make fun of Ron?" "Let's go," said Theodore, guiding his son out of the airport under Ron's envious eyes. "You have to work well, maybe one day you could have a higher position in the family," Patrick told his son as he dragged him into the airport. Ron nodded and just as he entered the runway kicked a puddle on the ground in anger. It just so happened to hit a young woman who had just descended from a small private plane. Her golden hair looked astonishing, but she was dressed in rags and had a cloth bag on her back. "Hey, what are you doing?" she yelled at Ron in a strange accent, making him get angry. He could barely hold himself when Victor made fun of him because of the difference in ranks. But now even this servant slut dares yell at him. He used all his half-player power to kick another paddle toward the girl, but it never landed on her, as a white-haired old man in butler uniform grabbed it and hurled it back at Ron at the speed of a bullet. Thankfully Patrick quickly grabbed it with his hand and saved his son. "How dare you attack my son? Do you, Uncle Falcon?" Patrick was scared and he quickly bowed down in respect as he kicked his son's leg, making him kneel on the ground. "This young one's son has made a mistake and we hope that he can be spared," Patrick said respectfully as sweat dropped from his brows. Falcon said nothing, he just looked at the girl, who nodded, then walked past Patrick and spat on the astonished Ron as she moved beside him. Then continuing on her way. "Sorry Patrick, this girl is missing some manners. But it was your son's fault," Falcon said as he put his hand on Ron's shoulder, sending his face into the ground. "Consider this his punishment for offending Miss Zoe," Falcon added as he continued his path toward the car stop. Ellipsis. Victor was astonished. He had just separated from his father who took a car and was going to see the patriarch. As for him, he has to wait a few minutes for the car that Kai has arranged for him. After getting into the limousine, he saw the old man and the girl approach the car. "Is this car going to the patriarch's hall?" Falcon asked the driver, who was a little embarrassed. "This car was prepared for young Master Victor, the driver said. "It's okay, let them in. This car is big enough, and we can make a detour," Victor said to the driver as he bowed his head respectfully to the old butler. Lily did too. "Yes, young master," the driver said as he quickly went down and opened the door for the old man and the girl, who quickly entered the car and began to look around in astonishment as if she had never seen such a luxurious car before. "You know this old man?" Falcon asked Victor with a little surprise. As far as he knows, very few of the young generation know about him. Uncle Falcon, the old patriarch's personal servant, is someone every young heir should know about. Your accomplishments are legendary, Victor said respectfully, making Falcon smile and nod as he looked at the purple jade token around Victor's neck. This young man was good. Really fit to be an elite disciple. Victor knew those two. He never met the old man before, he only read about him. He was the old patriarch's butler, who was sent secretly to protect his youngest daughter, Anne's sister, when she ran away from home with a young man a long time ago. That woman died in childbirth about 50 years ago. And the girl here was his great cousin, the granddaughter of that woman. She was raised in the mountains, and now that she has become an adult, Falcon revealed himself to her and then brought her here to try her luck with the ceremony. He read all about her in the burned archives of the family. In his past life, he only met her once, and that was very late. He was working at the Royal Library at that time. She was there to inquire about a few things, and he helped her out. She had the looks of a woman in her 30s while he was an old shivering man back then. She never knew his identity and chose to remain silent to protect her, and himself. She had many enemies and was known as manhood-destroying Zoe at that time. No one knew why she was called that, but she was a really mean, ruthless, and strong woman. She probably got betrayed by someone that made her character a little twisted, unlike the naive blushing mountain girl in front of him. Name: Falcon Whiteoak. Level: 105. Class: Archer. Abnormal status: Slave nullified. Authority: 10. Strength: 285. Agility: 278. Intelligence: 211. Luck: 52. Charm: 53. Order: 39. Skills: Bow Arts S. Ice Mirror S. Cooking S. Brewing A. Projectile A. Survivor A. Knife Arts A. Quick Steps A. Sword Art B. Hide Breath B. Cleaning C. Play Dead D. Hairdressing D. Hunting D. Surveying E. Poetry F. Chess F. Equipment: Storage Ring F. Fate Status: Fate's Power B. Fate's Direction: Neutral. Fate's Design: Unspecified. Total: B. Zoe Bolt. STR 30. Int 11. Luck 15. Charm 22. Fate: Fate's Power. SS. Fate's Direction: Positive. Fate's Design: Made for Greatness. Total: SS+. Bloodline: Elder Dragon. 40% purity. 45% purity. 5% purity. A scion. He never knew that. She hid very well. And what's wrong with her bloodline? 3 bloodlines. Really? No. Matter what, this one should be made an ally. I am Victor von Weiss. May I inquire about this beautiful lady's name? Victor asked politely, making Falcon's eye twitch. Victor. That pervert. He might have been lying in the mountains, but he had heard about him, and he has to make things clear, or this pervert would put his hands on little Zoe. Ahm, this is Zoe Bolt, she is your cousin, Falcon said, clearing things out, while Zoe blushed. She has never been called beautiful before. Ah, nice to meet you, cousin Zoe. The ceremony was a few days ago. I didn't see you there. Victor asked as he smiled brightly, making Zoe lower her head in shyness. Yes, we had some trouble on the road. But the patriarch approved a late ceremony for her. It will happen tomorrow morning. Falcon said with a sigh as he glared at the little embarrassed Zoe, who was the cause of the delay as she insisted on taking revenge on some gangs in the mountain village she lived in, making them miss the appointment. Ah, so that's it. Victor thought. He was wondering why did his grandmother approve of giving Iris a chance at the awakening despite missing the date. Activating that orb costs a lot of gems. The ceremony was conducted for Zoe and not Iris. It was to give Falcon face probably. This guy is very strong and held an honorary elder position in the family. So you will be attempting the ceremony with my big sister. I hope that both of you succeed. Victor said with a dashing smile that made Zoe blush more. He began to ask her about her life in the mountains without forgetting to compliment her every now and then. Making her laugh as he joked around. What a smooth talker, thought Falcon, who regretted taking the car with this guy. She is your fucking cousin. Although the family wouldn't mind such a relationship, he would. Zoe was like his granddaughter. You already have a pretty girl who is getting a little jealous at your side. Wait, he suddenly stopped and looked at the veiled Lily, who was sitting silently beside Victor. Why does this girl look familiar? I should have never seen her before as I never set foot on the island for the past 30 years. Strange. He didn't get a chance to observe Lily anymore as the car slowly stopped at the Patriarch's Hall. Nice to meet you, Victor. I hope we meet again. Zoe said with a bashful tone before dashing out of the car, followed by Falcon, who shot Victor a glare before leaving. Let's go inside, Falcon said as adjusted his cloth. Zoe, whose eyes were following Victor's car, which hurried up the mountain, nodded and then turned to look at the hall. Ah, yes, she said while wondering why does that cousin look so good. He is much more handsome than her childhood friend who left the village 1 year ago. Chapter 102, Negotiations. It took the car some time to reach the mansion where Grandma Anne lived. When Victor stepped out of the car, he was greeted by a fat face that sat on a fat body. Young master, we meet at last. The fat man said it was Kai. What are you doing here? Victor asked him, immediately making him skip the introduction he was planning. I went ahead to inform the mistress of your arrival, Kai said proudly. And you were kicked out, Victor said, looking at the dirt on Kai's pants. Kai quickly nodded with embarrassment. That slut ordered her servants to throw him out. Oh, he can't say that out loud. If he did that, his fat head would be free to roll by itself on the ground. The matriarch didn't want to see you, Kai said. She told me to tell you to just do your assignment and marry Linda. He added, oh, then step aside and keep Lily company. I will reason with her, Victor said as he headed to the manor, under Lily's worried gaze. The mistress does not want to see you, the guard said. Tell her, I have smoothing that would change her mind. Something to do with the sword sect, Victor said, making the guard look at the butler who was standing at the door. The butler quickly went inside, then returned and invited Victor in. Ellipsis. It was the same drawing room in which he met his grandmother the last time he was here. She was waiting for him while reading a book. It was a BL novel. He did find a full stack of those when he unearthed this mansion back then. So what deal do you have for me this time? She raised her head and asked him as he entered the room. Something you can't refuse, he said as he used his appraisal skill. This time he could read her stats. Name, Anne von Weiss. Level, 99. Class, Dark Witch. Authority, 09. Strength, 211. Agility, 271. Intelligence, 250. Luck, 42. Charm, 49. Order, 39. Skills, Dark Arts S. Dark Area Control S. Encouraging Speech A. Negotiating A. Scheming A. Augmented Hearing A. Knife Arts A. Quick Steps A. Hide Breath A. Kissing A. Fireball B. Waterball B. Gourmet B. Inspecting Gaze C. Demonic Voice D. Minor Sword Arts D. Chess D. Piano E. Poetry E. Drawing F. Equipment, Defensive Talisman SS. Hidden Magic Wand A. Curse Shielding Earrings A. Poison Detection Ring B. Storage Ring B. Fate Status, Fate's Power, C+. Fate's Direction, Rising, Fate's Design, Unspecified, Total, C. Wow, as expected of a family head. Too bad such status would become useless after the reckoning. Oh, something I can't refuse. You sound like some lousy salesman. What might that thing be? She asked as she looked at him with interest. I need a promise first, he said. About Arya, she asked. Yes, and a few other things, think of it as a deal. He said. That depends, what do you have? She asked curiously. A treasure that can make a semi-player upgrade to a player under certain conditions, Victor said. Really? She asked with a frown in a surprised yet unbelieving voice. Do tell me. It's called the Pendant of Armas. It can increase the authority of whoever wears it by 1, he said. What's the catch? She asked. Such treasures usually have huge penalties. It can only be worn by players below level 5, he said as he helped himself to a seat, while Anne looked at him with curious eyes, waiting for him to further explain. I heard that young Master Wang Ling from the Sword Sect was his patriarch's only son and that his father lost the ability to have other children due to practicing a certain technique. He said, Wang Ling has only awakened as a semi-player, so he lost the qualification to inherit his father's seat. He might want this treasure. I heard that their sect is on the brink of an inner war for succession in the absence of a suitable candidate. Victor said, making his grandmother throw the book in her hand to the table and then look at him. I already know that. Stop your mind games and tell me how this treasure can be useful. She said with indifference, but he could see the fire of interest flickering in her eyes. The Mardic curse, he said, making Anne frown. The smile then began to laugh, while clapping her hand. In the depth of the Dawn Valley, there exists a cleared dungeon. It was cleared and searched many times to the point where nothing of value remains there. But in it there exists a demonic pond. If someone entered it with equipment, the thing would be permanently fused with the wearer's body. And that victim would be bald and lose the ability to have children. In addition to that, he would never be able to take off his equipment or wear another one. Only desperate people would go through that. And usually to equip high-level treasure. As the curse totally ignores the equipping requirements. Wang Ling was a pervert who had already fathered tens of children, so his father would probably push him into the dark pond himself. As the elders of the sect were on the verge of deposing him as the patriarch. Well played, she said, this would be a good move. Okay, good. What do you want in exchange? I will not accept a request to nullify your marriage though, as this has something to do with family interests. Don't think that your little play at the party yesterday would make me change my mind. She said, with a smile. I am not an idiot, he said, I already know that you are using me as a decoy to divert the other power's attention from the real elite heirs. Can I ask why you are so insistent on this marriage contract? Those von Rosens probably want to use me to infiltrate the family. Victor added, hinting at the danger. Oh, not bad. You are not stupid after all. She praised with a mocking smile. Okay, I will tell you why. 16 years ago Amelia traded her daughter with 3 drops of purified blood from our family. I need to know what have they done with it, and if they got anything useful. If you can get me this information I can spare you the marriage and grant you all the rights of an elite disciple. If not, I want you to marry her, then try to find the information I want, through her or her mother. She is her mother's only daughter after all. And their family is ruled by women. Anne said, making Victor frown. He needs a change of plans. That means that you would never really give me any real position in the family, so as not to let them infiltrate us. He said, exactly, not for the time being anyway. She replied. He frowned but was secretly really glad. Just as he wanted, being given a family position would put him under the family's strict surveillance. And he didn't want that. Okay, first I need Arya. He said, you can take her, she has already been branded by the family's tattoo. So she would be your servant. Anything else? She asked. Victor hesitated, he wanted to ask for some coins for the pendant before but not anymore, as he had just got a piggy bank at home and no longer needed the money. I heard from my sister that elite disciples have the chance to visit the vault. And I was not granted that right. So I would require the right to select one item from there. He said, making Anne frown, she didn't expect him to know about those. Fine, it's your right anyway. You have more? She asked. Yes, I want the girls that were trained with my servant Lily in the Assassin's Hall, he said. Oh, those girls. Dick intends to sacrifice them as a tribute at his son's funeral tomorrow morning. You just got here in time. Such a waste of resources. You can go get them, Anne said, making Victor frown. That bastard, he should get rid of him fast. If that's all I would need the pendant? She asked impatiently. Victor quickly took out the pendant from his ring and threw it at her. He is no longer in the mood to talk. She looked with interest at the 2 rings in Victor's hand, then ignored them and began to inspect the pendant. She would have to appraise it. But Victor would never dare to lie to her. Come here 2 days later to enter the vault, she said as she threw him 2 jade tokens. These are patriarchal command tokens, use them to get Arya and the girls. She said, then waving her hand and throwing him out of the window into the front yard head first. Bitch, Victor screamed silently as he stood up and dusted his pants, then left the mansion. Is everything okay, young master? Kai asked, as Lily helped wipe the dirt off Victor's face. Yeah, the negotiation was a success. Get me a helicopter. I need to go on a quick trip, he said looking at the setting sun. Chapter 103. Start a new life. Let's go, Margaret said as she started Victor's car with Alex sitting next to her in Alpha, who claimed that she needed to buy a few things for her mission, on the back. Why are you wearing a face mask? Margaret asked Alpha. Some bad people want me dead, so it's better this way, Alpha replied. Margaret nodded, then started the SUV. She always dreamed of driving an expensive car like this. Now her dream has come true. This is her husband's car. She will just think of it as such. The trip to get Margaret's stuff, which was supposed to be a quick one, took longer than expected due to the traffic jam. The highway was closed because some criminal threw a grenade into another car, killing the driver, who was discovered to have had a rifle, so the crime scene had to be closed and searched for other explosive materials. That's what they said on the radio anyway. There was an interview with a girl who happened to witness the scene. They arrive at Margaret's aunt's apartment at about 10 a.m. It was in a modern multi-family 5-story residential building. Wait for me here, I will be right back, Margaret said as she headed toward the building and then climbed the stairs to the third story where she was shocked by the sight of her clothes and things scattered on the ground in front of the door. It looks like they were thrown out, then some people rummaged through them. She just stood there in shock, then clenched her fist, got herself together, and after taking a deep breath, she knocked loudly on the door while trying hard to keep her cool. She was never given the apartment's keys as her aunt accused her many times of being a thief and stealing money from her purse. The true culprit was probably Abe, who keeps going to dirty places. "Oh, look who's here. What took you so long?" A middle-aged woman opened the door and shouted loudly. It was Margaret's snobbish aunt. "Lulu told me that you no longer need us and that you found yourself some old money bag, so I threw away those useless things in front of the door as they would no longer be needed. And from the look of it, some pigs smelled the smell of a sow and picked a few things," she said with a smirk as she looked with disgust at the things on the ground, then turned to inspect Margaret from head to toe. "Now, my dear, Abe told me that your patron will send us some compensation for taking care of you all these years. Where is it? Don't even think of pocketing the money, or I will call the police and get you arrested for prostitution," she threatened while her eyes hovered on the bag in Margaret's hands. "From now on I have nothing to do with you," Margaret said as she opened the bag full of money and dumped the whole thing on the floor and the stairs, then stepped over it and left under the astonished eyes of her aunt, who yelled to her daughter to come to help her, then began to pick up the money from the ground, while cursing at Margaret and screaming at the neighbors who jumped out of their apartments after smelling the money. Margaret just went downstairs without picking up any of her things. They meant nothing to her anyway. As for the money, as Victor said, consider it her final act of piety. Her aunt never liked her, and the only reason she took her in was the government subsidies that were claimed for taking care of her. Those would stop in 2 more months anyway, as Margaret would be considered an adult. Despite the tears in Margaret's eyes, she felt free for the first time in her life, but she couldn't help but sob a little as she exited the building. "Don't care about them, you should focus on your new life," a calm voice said from behind her. Margaret turned around to see that it was Alpha. She smiled and wiped her tears. "It's okay, just something went into my eyes," she threw a cliché line and then headed to the car. "Yeah, I hope that would never happen to me, as I only have one eye left," said Alpha as she patted Margaret on the back. "Let's go, you will be my shopping assistant as I will have to keep wearing this mask. And you would need some supplies, after the mess your aunt made," Alpha said as she jumped back into the back seat followed by Margaret. "You drive, I am not in the mood anymore," Margaret told Alex from the back. Alex nodded, then turned on the engine and headed to the shopping district under Alpha's instructions. "What do you want to get?" she asked her. "The young master left me a set of instructions for this evening. But I need some materials. And a vaporizing machine," Alpha said. "Take me with you tonight," Margaret said suddenly. "It would be very dangerous. You might get hurt or even die. There are better ways to let out some steam," Alpha replied while looking at Margaret's eyes. "It's not that, I want to prove to Victor that I am more than a pretty girl," Margaret said. "Well, let's take her. We would need the extra hands," Alex replied from the front. "You shut up and drive. The young master was right, you are a magnet for trouble," she yelled at Alex and then turned to Margaret. "Okay, you can go, but you have to be very careful," Alpha said, making Alex a little upset. "Why yell at me if your decision is the same as mine?" she wondered silently. Margaret nodded. She would definitely be careful. "What is the mission?" she asked. "Kill a very evil man. The one who is haunting me and my sisters. Many people would die tonight." "Want to back down?" Alpha asked. "No, I will do it," Margaret said after some hesitation. She has killed goblins anyway. Would a man be different? Then let's get prepared. What better way to start a new life than a night of theft and murder? Alpha said with a smirk as she began to explain tonight's mission to Margaret and Alex in detail. The car soon reached the shopping district, and Margaret went under Alpha's instructions and purchased some materials from a traditional pharmacy, then they headed to another store where they bought a good quality vaporizer. "This thing is good for turning poisons into gas." After that, they accompanied Margaret to some stores and bought some daily necessities to replace those destroyed by her aunt. It was about 2 p.m. when they returned to the mansion and hurried to the basement, making Hilda and the twins who were busy teaching the girls how to do house chores a little curious. "Is this a recipe for poison?" asked Margaret as she looked at the densely packed paper and the many vials, including one containing a few drops of a purple substance that looked ominous. "Be careful, that thing is extremely poisonous. 1 drop is enough to render you an idiot," Alpha said, making Alex and Margaret step back. What are you going to do with it? Alex asked, with a worried look. Simple, adding a drop of this thing to a soul-affecting mixture would make it 100 times more effective. The young master left me a recipe for sleeping gas that would affect even players. We are going to let everyone at the brothel sleep then kill them one by one. She said with a vicious look in her eyes. Would it affect us? Margaret asked. No, we would be taking an antidote, and this thing's effect would be only temporary, about 10 hours. This recipe is genius, it manages to change the effect of the soul poison by combining it with common herbs. Alpha explained as she looked at Victor's beautiful handwriting in admiration. Would that Baron be affected? He seemed very strong, Alex asked, earning him a slap at the back of her head. Don't jinx it, Alpha said. Your mission is to stand outside and be a guard if someone escapes or tries to break in. With your level, you can contend with Baron. And we can't let you enter the brothel, we need the girls inside, and who knows what dirty thing you would do to them. Alpha said with an evil smile, making Alex a little flustered. I would do nothing, Alex said in a low voice, making Margaret chuckle. This guy is really interesting. What about me? What should I do? She asked Alpha. You can come with me to deal with the girls there. We need to take them in. But you have to be careful, Alpha said as she began the brewing process according to Victor's instruction. The process was complicated, but it was pretty straightforward for Alpha, who had an encyclopedia in her brain. They finished their preparations at 8 p.m. Then looked at each other dressed in black and smiled under the black cloth masking their mouths. They looked like anime characters. I think the young master would be interested in a play using this costume, Margaret said, making Alpha spit in disgust, and Alex a little embarrassed. Save it for later. We have to live past the night first, Alpha said as she led the girls outside the mansion, through the back gate. Their first mission. Borrow a bus. Chapter 104. Alpha vs. Baron. Alex and the girls made sure to hide their faces as they entered a certain bus station. Victor instructed them to find a storage locker there. It was where he hid the things he took from Nick's storage. It had some money and fake goods that could be useful later. So Alpha packed them in her backpack. After that, they borrowed a parked bus and headed out of town, to the suburbs where a lonely 3-story mansion stood alone surrounded by abandoned farmlands. It was already 11 p.m., and a few expensive but low-key cars were parked near it. Alex parked the bus in a hidden corner behind a grove a little far away, then set it up as if it had broken down. Is it the place? Margaret asked with a frown. Yes, this is a brothel that only the most privileged and perverted people know about, she said as she used her military-grade binoculars to survey the area. There are no traffic cameras. Only private ones, they hid them well. They don't want anyone to know what is happening here, she said. In addition to that, I can spot some guards, but I would need to be close to be sure. Then what should we do now? Margaret asked nervously. Wait for me, I will go check on the situation. Alpha slowly sneaked while using Oris's jewel to hide her aura, as she was sure there would be a detection formation placed here. Especially after what happened in Titus's manor. It took her another hour to circle the perimeters and then return. I found a suitable place for the vaporizer. I will connect it to the air conditioner compressor at the back of the building. But it would be very troublesome. There are about 3 guard patrols around the building, she explained. Alex, I want you to act as a decoy and make trouble at the door, she said. What should I do? We shouldn't make them suspicious, Alex said. I have an idea, Margaret said, quickly explaining her plan. After that, she changed her clothes with Alex, then took her hand and headed to the brothel, while Alpha chuckled and grabbed her gear and then started to sneak behind the building. Ellipsis. Do you have an invitation? The burly guard at the door asked Alex, as he approached the mansion with Margaret, who was sobbing. No, I am not here for that. I want to sell this girl, she said with an evil tone. No, you can't. You promised to take care of me. How could you? Margaret struggled hard trying to get out of Alex's grip and shouted in distress as she activated her enchantress skills. Alex slapped Margaret's face, then tore her dress, exposing a lot of skin, making the guard who was about to shoo them away decide to watch a little. Shut up, bitch. I spent so much money on you, it's your turn to pay me back, he said as he greeted her with another slap while she grabbed hard on his pants and began to cry, making sure that her body got more exposed. The guards on patrol quickly responded professionally and headed to the front door to lose all their professionalism there. They just stood there watching the show while drooling. It lasted about 15 minutes, in which Alex had to be more creative. He even had to spank Margaret a little. In the end, one of the older guards decided to step in but was surprised to notice that his head was no longer attached to his body. The guards fell one by one, as Margaret stopped her act and stood slowly while rubbing her butt. She just watched Alpha behead the last guard and then lick the blood on her blade. She was a little scared and totally forgot to take revenge on Alex for spanking her. Consider them goblins, she told herself, as she resisted the urge to puke. It's okay, it will pass, Alex told her as he took her sneaking suit from his backpack and gave it back to her. Focus on the mission, he said. Everyone inside should be already asleep, and everyone on the perimeter was killed. Alpha said, Alex, you quickly hide the guards, then change into one of their uniforms and guard the door. Margaret, if you are okay with it, go and start killing the guards inside. While I will go hunting, Alpha said as she entered the building. I can do it, Margaret nodded then quickly followed. This place didn't look like a brothel but like some aristocratic manor. With oil paintings on the walls and wool carpets on the ground. They quickly encountered the first guard. He was dozing on the ground behind the front door while holding his baton. You do it, Alpha told Margaret, who nodded then as Victor told her about beheading a goblin. She slit his throat. She thought that she would be disturbed like earlier, but she felt nothing, just a little annoyance. It's okay, after someone becomes a player they would become stronger, not only physically but also mentally. The intelligence attribute is not for show, Alpha said, explaining to the wondering Margaret, who nodded then took the baton from the guard. I will go up, you take care of everything here. Just clean the guards on the hallways, we will explore the rooms together later. If you encounter something unexpected just yell as loud as you can. Alpha said as she headed upstairs to Baron's office. She has been here before, this is where they brought her first after they kidnapped her, but after they confirmed her bloodline, she was sent to Titus. Baron's office was not lit, but Alpha could smell his disgusting breath from the cracked door. She got herself ready then opened the door slowly, to be attacked by a strike from a mace that she was expecting. If another player was in her place, that guy might have been turned into paste. But her attributes were 4 times those of Baron's. His attack was just like some kid jabbing an adult with a twig. Baron was not asleep, he didn't look good though. No, surprisingly, he looked good, despite the black circles around his eyes. He seemed to have lost some weight, he looked like a normal fat man now. Alpha didn't want to admit it but he was somewhat handsome. It's you, he yelled as he screamed at Alpha. What kind of evil poison is this? He shouted as he sweated heavily. He was losing weight at a visible rate. Oh, you have the fat sacrifice skill. I didn't think that it would be the reason behind your unique shape. Alpha replied with a chuckle. This skill is at least S-ranked. It sacrificed body fat in place of damage or adverse effects. No wonder he was not affected by the poison. But she could see that the fat on his body was diminishing at an accelerated rate. He was poisoned after all. Damn you, how do you know that? The surprised Baron screamed as he attacked Alpha with his mace, making her respond by parrying with her sword, then followed by an attack that struck hard at Baron's mace. That was a mistake. His attack was well aimed. And her counter-strike pushed him flying toward the window. Breaking it, he hurled down to the backyard. After a flip that didn't suit his body shape, he stood up and began to run, intending to escape. He wanted to surprise the assailant and kill him, but this B*TCH was much stronger than he expected. He was well experienced and could tell that from just one strike. Her legs didn't budge at all when he hit her. So he decided that escape was the best strategy. Alpha cursed as she jumped after him. If he escaped today, killing him later would be very troublesome. She used the ledges of the building as steps for her quick steps skill, making her reach the ground pretty quickly, then ran after Baron. Thankfully the poison was really effective, and Baron was slowed down enough for her to catch up with him and attack him from behind, making him turn around and block. The fight ensued after that. Although she had learned sword fighting since she was a child, Baron was not an easy opponent. So she resorted to overpowering him, wanting to end this quickly by letting go of fancy techniques that didn't work. But still, she couldn't land a clean hit as his moving skill was very advanced. They were approaching the highway. If this was delayed any further he would probably get a chance to slip. So she quickly slashed her hand and then threw her sword at him to delay him as she activated her skill, the blood sword, making blood from her bloodied hand grow and solidify into an ominous sword. F***ck, yelled Baron as he attacked her, but this time it was different. Her blood sword was stronger than the one she was using, and it would bend on its own, making Baron's dodging uselessly. With every jab of her sword, she could see that the fat on his body was decreasing until he was left looking like a living skeleton. Who is behind you? He asked, while skillfully putting his hand behind his back. She responded with a howl that made him freeze for just a second. Enough for her to let her sword pass through his once thick now shivering neck. His head fell to the ground like a dried piece of wood, followed by his body, and the golden dagger he was planning to throw at her. This thing is an artifact. It looks high-leveled. Alpha quickly searched him to get his keys, his IDs, and the pen Victor told her about. It seemed to be just a normal pen. This is not an artifact. Why would Victor want it? She didn't know. After a thorough search, she didn't find the seal. It must be at the office. But her mission here was still not over yet. She took out a vial from her pocket and emptied its contents on Baron's corpse, making his skeletal body disintegrate. Now, no one would be able to tell if this scum was dead or alive. Chapter 105. A girl. Margaret began to move from one corridor to the next, killing one guard at a time. The feeling of annoyance she had before has completely disappeared. She just had to remind herself that those guys were worse than goblins. She heard some noise from the top floor and was a little nervous. But she believed that Victor would not send Alpha here if he was not assured of her safety. Alpha returned from outside the building 15 minutes later, just as Margaret had managed to finish all the guards on the hallways. It's done. Let's start checking the room from Baron's office, she told Margaret as they headed there. The office was a mess thanks to the battle that happened here earlier, but Alpha was able to get quite a few useful things like incriminating documents and maps, in addition to the empty book that Victor wanted. It was as he described it. A brown weathered leather book that had an ominous eye symbol on it. Alpha knew what this thing was. It was the tool Baron used to test hers and the girl's bloodline. But it was just a low-level artifact, as it only confirmed or denied the existence of bloodline with some random information like the target's bone age and health status. After that, she searched for the seal. This thing should be placed in the safe under Baron's desk. She quickly tried to open it using the key, but this thing required a security pin. So she just sliced it open with her blood sword under Margaret's astonished eyes. She took out the seal after grabbing the documents that were in there and stuffing them in her bag. The seal was a silver-colored small fox statue with a strange inscription on its bottom. Alpha quickly bit her finger and drew a symbol on it, making it shine with a bright light. Not only was the seal now hers, but her mind also had the instructions for using it. Those idiots in the families didn't know how to bind artifacts. Smearing it with blood would only let it be superficially bound. To bind it completely, one must use essence blood in a binding symbol suitable for the artifact. Now, all the Baron's slaves have become hers. This thing was a low-grade slaving device. It requires drawing precise tattoos with blood on the enslaved, then putting this thing on the tattoo to activate it. That was really troublesome and would require hours of work. On top of that, it could only be used for punishing or killing the target. Nothing fancy like tracking, or wiping memories, like the ones the family uses. We are done here, Alpha told Margaret, who didn't manage to find anything useful. Just an antique porn book that she thought Victor would be interested in. Let's go check the other rooms, Alpha said as they left the office, which was on the top floor. They would go down room by room from her to the basement. The first one was the security room, where Alpha proceeded to kill the guards and then destroy the recordings after making a copy of a certain hidden folder. What are you going to do with that? Margaret asked her, looking at the flash drive in her companion's hand. Many of the rooms have hidden cameras. Baron seemed to have been keeping VIPs' good deeds recorded here. It can be used for blackmailing them, Alpha said as she proceeded to physically destroy the hard drives and backups with her sword. The next 3 rooms they checked were empty, the 4th wasn't. An ugly fat man was sleeping with 2 beauties in there. Margaret was disgusted, Alpha wasn't. First, she checked whether the girls had the tattoo, then, she quickly took an antidote vial and dipped a needle in it before pricking the 2 girls' arms with it. The girls took 5 minutes to wake up. What's going on? The girls asked as they woke up and were a little confused. Alpha didn't have time for explanations, she simply used the seal in her hand to inflict some pain on them. I am now your master, she said as she watched them wither in pain. This was a little cruel, but it was the fastest method. The girls quickly kneeled on the ground with fear. Go get dressed, then wait for me on the 1st floor. I will be taking you out of here, Alpha said as she took a dagger and approached the sleeping man. She intended to castrate him but didn't want her blood sword to touch him. Just as her dagger was over the man's crotch, she hesitated a little, then chose to back down and do nothing. If he was left here to bleed, he would be dead by the morning when they find him. If this guy was a VIP from some important family, that would spell a lot of trouble for Victor. You can kick him there. That won't kill him, but he will not be able to do anything with broken tools. Margaret, who got Alpha's idea from her facial expression, said as she made a kicking motion with her slender leg. Alpha looked at Margaret with astonishment then nodded. This girl has potential, she thought as she used 50% of her strength to kick that guy's crotch. Oops, it was still too much. His entire pelvic bones were broken. You really hate men, don't you? Margaret asked her as they proceeded from room to room doing the same thing. Yes, Alpha replied without explanation. Heading to the second floor and opening the first door there. What they saw made both of them halt in surprise. This beast, Alpha said, as she saw a man with a young teenage girl who had clear tear marks on her cheeks. And bruises all over her body. You do it, she said to Margaret, who was also disturbed when she saw the pervert's face. Abe, she gasped, he must have taken the money you gave his mother and used it to come here. I am surprised that he knew the right people. This place is a private club after all. Alpha said as she woke the confused girl up, then sent her to the others after checking that she can walk. She didn't use the seal's punishment on this one, as she seemed to have suffered enough. Margaret hesitated for a moment then after looking at the poor girl, did as Alpha told her, and broke Abe's third leg, but she used a baton instead of her foot. Unfortunately, she was not as efficient and her aim was off. It took her 5 strikes to get things done, and many of his leg's bones were broken in the process. After 2 hours they finished the 3 floors, including the small dormitory behind the mansion, where they found a few sleeping guards and girls. Now, there were 27 scared and confused girls waiting for them in the main hall. Their ages ranged from 13 to 30. Is that all? Asked Margaret, who regained her composure and looked at the girls with sympathy. She was lucky her uncle was an idiot and didn't think of selling her to a place like this. Not yet, we have to go to the basement, Alpha said. But I already checked it, there was only a boiler room there, Margaret said. Alpha shook her head as she went to a normal corridor's end, then used Baron's key to open a hidden door. Let's go in, Alpha said as she descended the hidden stairway that appeared behind the door. This place had 3 rooms, 2 of them were full of nude girls, they had beating marks all over their bodies, while the last room was full of both naked men and women in all kinds of positions. It had many nasty tools scattered on the ground. What is this place? Margaret gasped as she put her hand on her mouth. They bring girls here first, then train them to be prostitutes, Alpha said as she began to wake up the girls. All of them have been tattooed. And the tattoos looked fresh. It seemed that Baron wanted to guarantee that no accident like the one that happened in Titus's mansion would happen again here. The girls were very miserable, and some of them were really hurt. They had to be helped by their friends to be able to walk out. Margaret didn't need Alpha to tell her this time, she proceeded on her own accord to break those men's tools. And maybe she went a little overboard, but they deserved it. In the end, they had about 60 pretty girls. That's more than I anticipated, said Alpha with a frown, as she inspected the girls who were dressed in men's clothing now. They didn't have any, so they had to use the guards in customers' clothing. From now on, you belong to my young master. Understood, she told them as she raised the seal in her hand, making the girl involuntarily kneel on the ground. Baron had trained them hard. Now, let's go. Alpha took the girls out to meet Alex, who had already cleared their traces and brought the bus to the front door and began to help the girls in. Some of them gave him curious looks. Is this the young master? Now get in. It will be a little cramped, but we will manage, she said to the girls who didn't dare ask her where she was taking them, nor did they care. Any place is better than here. Alex, you take Margaret and return home. I will drive the girls to a safe place, Alpha said as the girls took their seats. Where to? Margaret asked. Yesterday, I made a plan. I will take them to a remote abandoned village. I plan to create a special team using them, she said. That place was once a secret base of her family. It was hidden well so no one should have discovered it, because all the family members were ordered to return to the main base after the enemies developed a way to track their bloodline. Understood. How long would it take you? Alex asked. I will be back in a couple of days. Protect my sisters for me, she said. Okay, Alex nodded as he watched her climb into the driver's seat and then drive away. Now, shall we go home? Alex asked Margaret with a sigh. What, are you jealous that you couldn't spend some time with those girls? They may have mistaken you for the mysterious young master, she said with a chuckle as she grabbed Alex's butt, intending to tease him. Ah, Alex let out a surprised voice. What, Margaret quickly let go and then pointed at Alex. "You are a girl." She shouted. "No, I am not," Alex flusteredly said, as she began to walk away ignoring Margaret. "Do you think I am naive? Your voice just now, and your butt is definitely not a man's butt. Don't you dare lie to me," Margaret yelled as she chased after her. Chapter 106. Saving Arya. Victor's first stop was the temporary prison on the main island. Arya was being kept there as a decision about her destiny has not been reached yet. The military-grade spacious helicopter struggled to find a suitable landing position in front of the prison building, making Victor jump from it before signaling the Kai who was acting as a pilot to land a little away. "Wait for me," he told Lily and Kai as he went straight to the building whilst reminiscing about this place. Back then, when he was set up, he had to spend 2 weeks here before they kicked him out of the family. The rooms here were not very comfortable, but they had a bed at least. Arya was lucky they sent her here because the island where the family usually threw their prisoners was not a place a young girl like her can survive. It was probably his father who pulled a few strings. The treatment here was much better than in that hellhole. No guard stopped Victor. He was wearing the purple Elite Air token proudly around his neck. This is not a place to act low-key. This place was a maze. After getting lost for a few minutes, Victor let go of his ego and humbled himself to ask one of the guards, who led him to a cell on the second floor. The door was a little ajar and Victor could see what was happening inside. 3 men, 2 old and 1 young, were facing the angry Arya. She was dressed in a gray criminal dress and had a clear slap mark on her cheek. Victor frowned as he recognized the men. The first one was Mason, who questioned him in Vane City, and the other old man was another elder from the Inquisition Hall whom he couldn't remember, but he could recognize the distinct token on his robes. The young man was one of his cousins. His name was Morris. He was a semi-player. A minor character, but his father, Victor's uncle, was the head of the punishment hall. A very influential elder in the family, and one of the top names on Victor's revenge list. Thankfully he had no influence here, as this place was run by the Inquisition Hall. "I told you, bitch. I will let you moan my name all night. And when I am finished with you, my men will like the new taste," Morris said. "Morris, you can't touch her yet. Not until the council reaches a decision," the elder said. "Jackson, don't be stingy. I already talked to them. Once the command was issued she would be killed right away. And this is not against the rules as we need to interrogate her," Mason said, giving an excuse. "Let young Master Morris here have some fun." He added. "Theodore will not like this," Jackson said with a sigh, making Morris frown. "He is not your boss, my father is. He will never know anyway unless you tell him," Morris said, then turned to Mason. "Uncle Mason, help me convince him, you promised. If you let me have her I will tell my father to help Titus. Last I have heard they have already extracted half of his blood essence," Morris said with an evil grin. "Just do it, I will take the blame," Mason said with a sigh. "Now quickly give me her soul mark and let me be her master. I promise that she will not survive the night," Morris said as he licked her lips. "Loser," Arya screamed. "You can't overpower me with your force, so you resort to nefarious means." She spat at him. "Bitch, let me teach you how," he said as he wanted to give her another slap, but his hand was caught by Victor, who punched him in his face, sending him hurling into the cell's wall. "You," Jackson and Mason exclaimed, while Arya gasped and put her hand on her mouth while tears trickled from her eyes. This was the first familiar face she saw after all that happened yesterday. "Elder, my name is Victor von Weiss, and I hold a command from the Patriarch," Victor said as he bowed respectfully, then threw one of the commands at Jackson, whose eyes grew sharp when he channeled his energy into it. He just heard Anne's command play in his mind. Give Arya to Victor, so it was not the Patriarch, but higher powers, he thought with a smile. This makes things easy. Understood, he said as he pointed at Arya with his token, making the tattoo on her neck flash. Victor quickly activated his token to make her his servant. Under Mason's astonished look, he said nothing, but he wondered why did the Patriarch help him. Theodore was ordered to stay out of this matter before. "You bastard, how dare you hurt me? Uncle Mason, Uncle Jackson, arrest him. He just assaulted a family member, breaking family rules," Morris yelled as he slowly stood up and pointed at Victor. Jackson did nothing, he just shook his head, while Mason hesitated then stopped, choosing to stay out of this. "Sorry Titus, you would have to suffer a little more in there." He prayed silently for his nephew. "He has to ask someone else for help, it seems." "What do you mean, break the family rules? Arya was mine the moment the Patriarch gave her to me, and you just assaulted her intending to rape her." This is enough for this young master to break your third leg. Victor yelled as he slapped Morris's face again. Not to mention the fact that this young master is an elite family member. Educating others in the family is my responsibility, Victor said as he gave Morris a final slap and then headed toward Arya. It's not that Victor didn't want to kill him, but this idiot's father was very troublesome. Victor said nothing after that, he just helped Arya stand up. She stood up, hugged him, plunging her head into his chest and beginning to cry. Her mother committed suicide first, then before she could cope with that, she was arrested and they told her the shocking truth, she was not a Von Weiss. Her mother adopted her at birth because of her purple hair to scam the family. She was brought here and was forced to spend the night in this cell. After they tattooed her like a servant while telling her that her father whom she loved dearly will not help her. She didn't resist, she just wanted to die, as the shock was too much for her to handle. And yesterday night was the darkest in her life. She didn't know what to do, hoping that maybe someone would save her from this nightmare. But she knew that no one would come. Those who claimed to be her half-brothers wouldn't risk their position in the family for her. And she was not even family with them anymore. An hour ago, this piece of shit Morris came and began to molest her, demanding that he should play with her. So she had to struggle, she didn't mind death, but she didn't want to be humiliated before that. Victor was the last person she expected would come to save her. I told you that you would be mine one day. Don't worry, we will still be family, he said softly, making her cry harder. This bastard was only here to play with her like Morris, but she didn't hate him, on the contrary. She felt that he was her only reliance right now. Let's go, this is no place for this, he said as he shook his head while wondering if he had some kind of a hidden skill that made girls cry on his shirt. Would it be an S or an F rank? Can it be used in a dungeon? Arya nodded then left the hall with him under Morris's harmful gaze. He will surely call Daddy to complain after this. But that snake would not move this easily. Victor took Arya quickly to the helicopter where she sat next to him and rested her head on his shoulder. I guess I am stuck with you from now on, she said. Should I keep calling you Victor or young master? She asked him. Dear brother, would work, he said. You seem to have some sister complex, she said as she wiped her tears, having regained some of her sassiness after meeting him. I will just call you young master. It is better this way, she said as she closed her eyes. She didn't get to sleep last night. Lily, who was a little jealous, could feel that Arya was hiding her sadness and despair behind jokes. But at least she would still have a younger brother after all this. The young master is really good, she thought as her tender eyes looked at him from the back. Whatever you want, now let's go get the other girls, Victor said, making Arya open her eyes again, then pinch him hard. Bastard, she thought. Lily, who was in the back, was tempted to do the same. What other girls? We already have a dozen at home. Bad young master, perverted young master. This young master has to do everything at volume, even saving damsels in distress. I have an image to keep, he said, feeling an angry pinch on his thigh. You don't have an image left. It was thrown into the garbage bin ages ago, Arya retorted as she closed her eyes again with a somewhat complex smile. She was too tired to argue with this shameless pervert. Where do we go now, young master? Where are the damsels in distress? Kai asked as he licked his lips. To the Assassin's Island. Grandma has agreed to give me a few new girls from there, Victor said as he looked at Lily and then winked at her with a smile. Lily, who totally understood him, gasped, then her scowl turned into a smile behind the veil. Her young master is really the best. She really wanted to jump and hug him right now. But this place was not appropriate. Kai had other thoughts. At first, he was cursing at Victor for being a womanizer. But then he stopped caring when he turned to the back just now and glimpsed at Lily. He just happened to make out some details from behind the semi-transparent veil. As she was sitting right behind him. Damn, how can a girl be this beautiful? Too beautiful, he thought, and that was the only thing he could think of for the next 30 minutes. Thankfully he was professionally trained so no one noticed when he wiped the blood that dripped from his nose as he piloted the copter. Chapter 107, Save the Girls. It was already 10:00 p.m. when the helicopter landed at a well-lit plaza on a southern island where the Assassin's Hall was located. The entire place was lit by torches as if it were some kind of a ritual ground. Lily didn't wait for her young master and jumped down first when she noticed the 8 wooden pillars that each had a pretty girl tied to it. They surrounded an altar where Guy's corpse wearing a groom's outfit was carefully placed over a pyre. Dick was clearly planning to burn them alive with his son's corpse. Probably at dawn with some audience it seemed, as many funeral tables were being arranged around the altar by some servants. Lily smelled the gasoline that sprayed on the ground. So did Victor, who gestured to the horrified Arya and Kai to stay on the helicopter as he jumped after Lily and put his hand around her waist, calming her down. "It's okay, we got here on time," he said, making her nod with relief. Arya, who heard him from behind, resisted the urge to spit on him. On time for what? Playing a hero? Did he time this on purpose? She wondered silently. "Can I help you?" A man dressed in black approached carefully and asked respectfully. "This young master is here for the girls. I have the Patriarch's order. Call your boss," Victor said in a loud arrogant voice while flashing his elite air token, making the man bow respectfully and then hurry to find Dick after taking a look. "Unbind them," Victor told Lily, who proceeded to do that. No guard dared to stop her after hearing what he said. If he was lying, then Dick would deal with him. If not, they would have to endure a beating for nothing. So just wait, the girls will not go anywhere soon anyway. The girls looked tired and dehydrated. They must have been here in the sun all day. But when they recognized Lily, they couldn't help but smile. The big sister was here to save them. All of them believed that it was her who killed Guy when they heard the happy news. Too bad their happiness didn't last, as Dick decided that his son needed some company in whatever place he would end up. "Big sister, you came at last," a girl said as she hugged Lily when the rope binding her were cut. She had some wetness in her eyes but didn't cry. They have learned the hard way not to shed tears in front of each other, as that made Guy punish them more. "Let's go help the others," Lily said softly and proceeded to unbind the other girls one by one, while that girl grabbed some water from a nearby table and helped her sisters drink. Despite being there for a day, they didn't need help moving as they were trained as assassins and had stronger resistance than most people. "Let's go meet the young master," Lily said as she dragged her sisters to Victor, who was inspecting Guy's corpse. The girls were stunned by his charming looks, and just as they were about to greet their new young master, a familiar thunderous ugly voice made them freeze in fear. "How dare you unbind them?" Dick, a tall man with a bald head, tired evil eyes with black circles around them, and a scar ruining his face. He ran from a nearby building and shouted angrily while the assistant who called him followed with a slap mark on his cheek. Victor quickly moved forward, putting the scared girls behind him, making them feel a little warm in their heart. "They are now mine, the Patriarch gave them to me," Victor said as he threw the Patriarch's command at Dick, who grabbed fast and activated it to hear Anne's command with a frown. If it was the Patriarch who commanded him, he might have some leeway, but it was Anne. And nobody dares disobey that bitch, not even him. Titus's public punishment 2 days ago sent shivers in his back whenever he remembered it. Damn it, he cursed silently as he looked at Victor with hatred. This young one is Victor von Weiss, an elite heir. "I came here on the Patriarch's command to take those girls as they were deemed to be needed by the family. And also I was reminded to offer my condolences for the passing of your son," Victor said as he bowed respectfully. Dick was an elder after all, and appearances must be kept. Dick von Weiss. Level: 59. Class: Assassin. Authority: 5. Strength: 175. Intelligence: 91 121. Agility: 137. Luck: 1730 seconds. Charm: 31. Order: 2. Skills: Area Inspect, A. Whip Arts, A. Shadow Cloak, A. Penetrating Dagger, A. Needle Arts, A. Quickstep, A. Hide Presence, B. Sword Arts, B. Rifle Arts, C. Cooking, C. Bow Arts, D. Follow Trace, D. Poison Brewing, E. Survival, E. Playing Dead, F. Titles: Baby Killer, A removable STIGMA. Kill more than 1,000 babies to gain this title. Effect: whenever you are near one, a baby would start crying loudly. Whenever you try to touch a woman, you will suffer from complete impotence. Every day at 12 a.m. a baby you killed would visit you for a talk. Whenever you go to the toilet you would suffer childbirth pain. Intelligence -30, Luck -15, Fate Status, Fate's Power, D. Fate's Direction, Negative Falling, Fate's Design, Fate is Disgusted Uncertain Death. Total, E. A title: this is the first person he met with this thing, and he only heard of a few people who had them in the past. And no wonder this bastard is irritated all the time. Victor wondered as he quietly appraised Dick, who regained his composure and nodded in acknowledgement as looked angrily at the girls behind Victor, especially Lily. Those girls were supposed to be his son's wives in the underworld. Now they jumped into another man's embrace while Guy's corpse was still warm. Damn, bitches. Just you wait, he cursed silently. He quickly thought of a plan. A man like him was as poisonous as a snake. Young Master Victor, taking the girls is fine. But my son loved them very well and took care of them well as he was both their master and trainer. I wish that they can share a toast for his soul with me. It is the least they can do. Dick said as he gestured to a mean-looking assistant to his side who quickly nodded and retreated, probably to get the liquor. No problem, Victor replied as he felt Lily's hand secretly touch his arm. She was not stupid. Dick probably intends to take his revenge somehow. And he will do it covertly. Victor quickly held her hand reassuring her. Soon the man returned with a decorated wine bottle. Victor almost gasped when he saw it. Livener's Liquor F. Effect. Intelligence degrades gradually by 15 points for the next 90 days. This bastard intends to harm the girls. This thing was pretty much useless on players, as its effect would be neutralized by their self-healing ability. And it is not marked as a poison, so no poison status alert would appear after drinking it. But on mortals, this thing would make them become idiots. And it would happen gradually, so he would not be suspected. Seeing this thing affirmed Victor's suspicion that there is some power behind Dick. This poison was not known to the family. Dick wouldn't dare use it if it were. It was probably meant to be used on some promising heir. The assistant prepared glasses openly for everyone including Dick and Victor, who turned to the girls and then ordered them while disguising his voice so that Dick didn't hear what he said. Drink only one sip, then spit it in disgust and empty your glasses on the ground. It is a poison, he said, just as they were handed their glasses and approached the altar facing Guy's corpse. The girls were professional assassins, so they didn't reveal anything unnatural. They just acted as usual. Dear son, look, we will toast to your soul now, hoping that you will find greatness in your next life. And marry 1,000 wives. Dick shouted as he raised his glass, followed by the disgusted girls and Victor, who wished that Guy's 1,000 wives would be his instead. Then they drank a mouthful, only to spit it all on Guy's corpse at the next moment. Dick was the one who spat it the furthest. What the hell is this thing? How can it be so disgusting? He wondered as he gave his assistant a death stare, not knowing that Victor had disguised the taste of this almost tasteless liquor with the taste of the mushrooms from the goblin's dungeon. Victor didn't expect that this useless upgrade of his skill would come in handy so frequently. Now it's his turn to act. How dare you make this young master drink this piss? Victor yelled as he threw the glass at Dick, making him step back professionally to avoid it. Making the glass hit his assistant behind him, who fell in pain with the liquor bottle that shattered on the ground. Damn idiot, Dick cursed while wondering for a second if Victor did that on purpose before forgetting about it as he watched Victor take a torch and throw it toward Guy's pyre, starting the cremation ceremony ahead of time. After that, he gestured angrily to the girl to follow him into the copter under Dick's and his underlings' astonished eyes. Dick was shocked, and before he could comprehend what had just happened he heard Victor's shouts. You will pay for this, Victor yelled as he rose into the air. This young master will complain to the patriarch. How dare you humiliate me and let me drink dirty things like this? His voice echoed as the helicopter took him away. Damn you, Dick yelled as he ordered his men to get his son's corpse before the fire reached it, as he didn't want him to be cremated like this without a suitable sacrifice. But it was futile. The ground was soaked with gasoline, so Guy's corpse burned to ashes under Dick's unwilling eyes. After 3 minutes, Victor, who was watching the fire and the angry Dick from above the sea, quickly activated his fate tracker skill on Dick, who was barely visible at this moment, then quickly unbuckled his seat belt. Did the family give me a mansion around here? He asked Kai. Yes, young master. It is the 24th on the East Residential Island. However, it is still empty. I haven't contacted any servants yet. Kai replied. Good, I know the place. Take the girls there while acting as if I were still with you. Victor said as he patted Lily's hair, then took out his token and phone and gave them to her. Take care of your sisters. I will meet you at the mansion. I have something to attend to, Victor said as he jumped off into the cold sea under the astonished eyes of Kai and the girls. Ellipsis. Victor used his disguise skill as he plunged into the dark seawater, hiding the splash in his body, and he swam back toward the island. He saw a certain look in Dick's eyes when he looked at the girls. That man wanted to kill Lily, he felt it. And Victor will not let anyone touch his Lily. It took him about 15 minutes to swim back to the island, where he sneaked through the shore as he activated a hiding talisman he bought from the store. Those things cost a fortune, and would only work for half an hour. But they would shield him from detection formations. He was reluctant to buy one earlier as it costs 100,000 per S-rank talisman. Those ones completely block his aura. But now he has a piggy bank, so he can easily spend this little money. He headed back to the plaza, where Guy's corpse has been burned to ashes that the servants were busy collecting. Dick was nowhere to be found, but Victor quickly followed the faith thread he tracked earlier deeper into the island to the main building. Strange, why head there instead of caring for his son's corpse? Victor wondered as he climbed through the forest heading toward a grand building higher up the island, while he purchased a few more talismans from the store. This is going to take a while. But no matter what, Dick must be eliminated. Ellipsis. Victor quickly caught up with Dick at the entrance of the building, which was the headquarters of the Assassin's Hall. He walked 3 feet behind him. Dick was walking slowly, heading deeper into the building while yelling at the unlucky servants who appeared in his way. Everyone could tell that he was in a very bad mood. Victor followed as Dick descended one stair after another until he reached what appeared to be his private training room, where he locked the door tightly after checking all around him. He then proceeded toward a rusty mirror on a nearby wall, then punctured his finger and drew a symbol on its surface. Zelator's communication mirror No. 7922. A rank. Can communicate with the other mirrors. But you have to know their key. Victor, who appraised the mirror, was shocked. This thing is a communication device used by a certain hidden power. The Dark Chamber, a secret organization that dealt with information and assassinations. The mirror shimmered for a while, then settled on the picture of a handsome man in a luxurious room. Victor didn't know him. What do you need, Dick? The man asked. Young master, I need permission to assassinate Victor von Weiss, Dick responded, making the man frown. Victor von Weiss, let me see, the man said as he played with a terminal in his hand. A player, Vane, Supreme Merchant. Goblin's Dungeon, Linda, what a bitch, he seems to be the new elite of your family. Killing him would draw too much attention, so you can't do it for now. The man refused. But that bastard not only took all the girls I was planning to sacrifice with Guy. He purposely ruined the funeral by starting the cremation. He ruined our plan. I lost the opportunity to ask Elder Sam for a toast and then poison him. Dick said. Oh, well, Sam is not that important anyway. His daughter-in-law will do it. Unfortunately, she would be discovered after this and we would have to extract her. But it doesn't matter. And for Victor, he seemed to have annoyed that B*TCH Charlotte, so his end would not be pleasant anyway. Let's get to business. Did you finish your harvest this year? The man asked. Yes, young master. They are all in my storage bracelet. Not many died at the ceremony this time, so I didn't get much from their corpses, but I found 3 brothers from a forgotten branch and harvested all of their blood. One of them had a very pure bloodline. Dick answered by raising his hand to reveal a copper bracelet around his arm. Common storage bracelet. Rank E. Can't store living things. Good, said the man. I will send someone to get it tomorrow or the day after. But, young master, what is the blood good for? Anne has been researching this thing for ages, but she has achieved nothing. Dick asked. That is not something you could ask, but don't worry, when we finish our research you would be greatly rewarded. And maybe you would be able to restore your manhood and father other children, the man said, making Dick's eyes sparkle with hope. Do you have there anything else to report? The man asked. I was wondering if the liquor you sent me was expired, Dick asked, remembering that disgusting taste in his mouth. You would have to ask Vlad about that. Now go do your job. Remember to only target unimportant members. The man said as his image shimmered, then. The mirror returned to its rusty looks. Dick sighed as looked at the bracelet in his hand. Victor, you will pay for the humiliation of today, he said as he turned to leave the room only to feel something prick him in the nape of his neck. What is it? He didn't get a chance to know as his body disintegrated under Victor's astonished eyes. He didn't dare attack Dick directly. This guy was a professional assassin, and although Victor could easily land the first strike, he was not sure how Dick would respond. So he chose to test his new poison. Damn, this thing is too overpowered. Victor cursed as he looked with fear at the needle in his hand. He just dipped it in the vial with the Black Widow's corpse and then pricked Dick with it. The dose was less than a drop. Question mark, 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 question mark. Poison. Rank SSSS. What the hell was this thing he created that even the system failed to name? And what with the SSSS rank? Victor had no idea such a rank existed. What would happen if he tried to enhance this thing even further? He carefully covered the needle, then put it with the vial in his storage ring and began to carefully appraise what remained of Dick's corpse. Thankfully it was not poisonous. He quickly put it in his storage ring to study it later, then collected the treasure scattered on the ground. Besides the storage bracelet, there were 10 steel throwing needles and a B-rank dagger. Victor branded it, then activated it and looked inside it, shouting in surprise. It was not very spacious. Inside it, 20 barrels full of blood with a purple hue were stacked. Dick has been collecting blood from the family and sending it to his employer, it seems. He was probably harvesting unimportant members and the fresh corpses from the ceremony. Victor looked around the room but found nothing important besides the mirror, which he grabbed and put in his ring. This thing can be used later. After cleaning everything, Victor changed his shape to that of Dick's, then left the room and headed outside while not forgetting to yell at some servants and some random assassins who had just returned from their missions. Soon he reached the docks, where he found a storage building and took 2 rubber boats from inside. He put one in his ring and used the other to sail. When a guard asked him where he was going, Victor only looked at the man and scuffed, causing him to wet his pants. The scared guard watched the boat disappear under the darkness of the moonless night. As Dick sailed with a solemn look, heading into the unknown. Not really. A few miles later he sank the boat and then used the other one with his disguise skill to sail to the eastern residential island where Lily was waiting for him. Chapter 108. A Night with Arya. It was 3 a.m. when Victor reached the residential island. This was the same one he lived in before, but his new mansion was located a little far away from his father's. Although Victor was tempted to give his mother a surprise visit, he chose to go toward his own mansion. It was too late right now. When he entered the mansion he was greeted by Kai, who stood up with little difficulty and bowed. He seemed to have been napping on the sofa. He had a red slap mark on his cheek, and Victor quickly recognized it as Lily's hand. He must have tried to boss her around, or maybe look behind her veil. If he had tried anything more than that, Victor was sure that his corpse would be discovered in the morning. He didn't blame him, on the contrary, he felt sorry for him. Lily's beauty can make men do unreasonable things. And looking at the awkward way he stood up, Victor doubted this man would have the courage to do it again. Name: Kai. Level: 20. Class: Butler. Abnormal status: Slave weak. Authority: 3. Strength: 65. Agility: 55. Intelligence: 55. Luck: 9. Charm: 15. Order: 17. Skills: Management: A. Defensive stance: A. Spotless cleaning: A. Cooking: A. Quick steps: B. Quick thinking: B. Sword arts: B. Staff arts: B. Thick skin: E. Singing: F. A** kissing: F. Fate status: Fate's power: B. Fate's direction: Neutral. Fate's design: Undecided. Total: -B+. Young master, how was your business? Kai asked after a cough. Fruitful, Victor answered as he looked around with a frown. Where is Lily? He asked. He expected her to be waiting for him like usual. Ah, she told me to inform you that she would spend the night with her sisters in the master bedroom. And that you should use Arya instead of her today. Kai answered, the gulped, and touched his crotch with a painful expression. Oh, where is Arya then? Victor asked as he smirked. Lily understands his intentions. She is sleeping in the 3rd room to the left on the 2nd story, Kai replied. Anything else? Victor asked as he noticed that Kai had something else to say. It's just that your esteemed mother called and wanted to invite you for dinner, but Miss Lily took the liberty to tell her that you were busy spending the night with your new maids and you would go there for breakfast. I tried to correct her but she slapped me. Kai said in one breath as if he was some schoolboy telling on his classmate. Is that all you really did? Victor asked as he squinted his eyes, making Kai sweat. I may have knocked out her veil while trying to take the phone from her hand, Kai replied with an aggrieved voice. Oh, then you deserve it. I will punish her later anyway. But it is better this way, he said, making Kai more aggravated. Victor nodded, then headed to the kitchen under Kai's complex look. Oh, and Lily's commands are the same as mine, remember that, you should call her mistress from now on, Victor said as he left the room, making Kai sweat even more. In the kitchen, he found nothing to eat. Despite having complete furniture and appliances, this mansion was not stocked with food yet. So he took a pack from his storage ring and prepared a cup of hot chocolate for Arya. He knew that she acted tough, but she was very fragile and would not be able to sleep easily. He was right. Arya lay on the bed staring at the decorated ceiling as tears fell from her eyes. She felt utter despair right now. She was sad about her mother. About the whole thing. And didn't know what to do in her life. Maybe Victor would be bored with her after playing for a few months and then let her go free to do whatever she wants. Maybe not. All Von Weiss males are very possessive. Would Victor sleep with her tonight? She wondered with a light blush as she turned to face the wall. She only had one boyfriend before. He courted her for 3 whole years in college. Despite accepting his confession, she didn't let him touch her. It was to protect him from her family as she was sure her father would kill him if he touched her without his approval. But that fool got angry and they broke up. Victor was not bad at all. Although somewhat of a pervert, he was really handsome. But because she thought he was her brother, she never dared to think of him this way before. She was wondering if tonight would be her first when she suddenly felt someone sit on the bed behind her. Ah, is it Victor? She recognized his unique smell. Why didn't he knock on the door? She didn't know what to do but nervously feigned to be asleep. If you want to feign sleeping you better take your hand out of there, he said, hastily pulling her hand back as she blushed deeply when she realized what she was unconsciously doing while thinking about him. I know that you are awake. Sit down and drink this. Victor said, making her bashfully sit down. And look at him with hesitation. Take this, he said, giving her one of 2 cups in his hands. She took it and looked inside wondering what kind of drugs he put inside. Does it matter? There is nothing in it, but you seem to be yearning for me to drug you. He said with a smile making her blush again while choosing to remain silent. Don't worry, I already told you, I will not touch you unless you ask me for that. He said, I just wanted to talk to you and ask you. What do you want to do from now on? He asked. Whatever the young master wants. She said with a low voice while watching the steam coming out of her cup. She felt some disappointment. Why am I thinking that? She wondered. How about you become the manager of all my businesses? He asked, making her look at him with surprise. Do you trust me enough for that? She asked. The system has decided that you are a good merchant. And I trust the system. Let's start with the business in Vane City. That's all I have now anyway. He said as he suddenly put his hand around her shoulders and hugged her. I told you, from now on we are a family. He said, making her blush. Today would be your first mission, dear Lily has given her position to you so you better cherish it. He said as he pushed the surprised Arya onto the bed and then hugged her. You said you wouldn't touch me. She said in a low timid voice. This is not touching, this is just hugging a new pillow, he said as he fell asleep. He was really tired after using his disguise skill all night. It drained his stamina completely. Arya was embarrassed, she didn't get what he meant until she heard his snores. Slept, really, just like that, she didn't know what to do, but strangely she felt peaceful. Maybe it is not that bad after all, she thought as she dozed off in his embrace. Ellipsis. See, I told you. My young master is the best. Lily said proudly, to her sisters who were hanging from the roof outside the room's window while peeping into Victor and Arya's conversation. But he still hugged her to sleep. A girl said, he will hug you all sooner or later. But he will not force you. He is much better than that scumbag guy. Lily retorted, we know. The girls said with a blush, their new young master was really handsome. But why did he tell that piece of shit butler to call you mistress? Another girl asked Lily making her blush. Well, he said that he wants me to be his main wife. Lily said with a heavy blush making all the girls gasp. They knew what the main wife meant in such a family. It was a very high position that meant she could represent him. And only a few family members would give such a position to any of their wives. Don't tell anyone about this. She warned them as they climbed down. Should we get rid of the butler? One girl asked. How dare he try to look at Big Sister? No, I punished him enough, but if he tried anything to any of you just tell me. Next time I will cut it all together. She said looking at a faraway corner before dragging her sisters to the master bedroom. It's been a while since they slept together. Ellipsis. Kai left the shadow of the corner while sweating. He decided that he should keep his distance from this crazy girl. But damn, she's beautiful, he thought. As he went to find a doctor. Her kick was not light at all, and if it were not for his formidable defense he might have become a eunuch. Ellipsis. Alex was standing on the balcony of her room whilst cursing. That F***C King Margaret was going to drive her crazy. Not only did she keep bothering her all night, she even broke into her room and drilled into the bed with her. Insisting that she is a girl. She was definitely doing this as revenge because she spanked her. Thankfully Alex was able to discover Margaret before she could start touching all over her body. Damn her, slut, She cursed as took out her spear intending to do some warm-ups to let out some steam when suddenly she noticed a movement in the woods below. Although the night was dark, Alex's enhanced eyes could make out a few men who were approaching the mansion from the forest. Alex didn't panic. He quickly touched the bracelet that Hilda gave him and pressed the button on it. "We have intruders. About 30 mortals, maybe more," he said. "Roger," the reply came. "I will move first," he said as he jumped from the balcony to the forest, ignoring Hilda's protesting voice coming from the communication device. The first man didn't know what hit him, and the second one only saw a spear cutting his neck. Ellipsis. The battle lasted 3 hours, and that was because of Alex, who stood with her face down in shame while Hilda berated her. "I told you we need to trap them first. Thanks to you we had to hunt them in the forest all night," Hilda said as she looked at the bodies. They were all muscular males and they had similar tattoos. A black lotus. Gangsters. The young master did say something about the Lotus Gang. What if one of them was a player? Have you ever thought of that? Hilda yelled again after taking a deep breath. "I am strong enough," Alex protested as she flexed her muscles. "But the girls aren't. What if those guys ran into one of them after they ran away from you?" Hilda asked, pointing to the frightened girl who was forced by her to move the bodies to build their resistance. "I am sorry," Alex nodded with tears in her eyes, having realized her mistake. "What if they had fire weapons or bombs?" she asked. "One of them had a gun, but I cut his hand," Alex said, making Hilda look at her more fiercely. "Be careful next time," Hilda said as she sighed. This mansion was severely understaffed and under guard. It was not fit to be an elite heir's residence. But again, in the history of the family, when has a mansion of theirs been attacked in the last 30 years? Especially in a major city. It never happened. Who dares to do it? What sh*t luck? The young master's mansion was attacked twice in 1 week. She is going to find out who was behind this, and she will make sure that they pay the price. She swore as she looked around. Now where is that girl Margaret? Didn't she hear the alert? She asked. "Ah, it may be my fault. I totally forgot about her," Alex said while sweating as she ran back to the mansion to untie poor Margaret, who was left tied like a dumpling in the room. Chapter 109, Lara. When Victor woke up in the morning, Arya was not clinging to him. On the contrary, he was on the ground. Just now she pushed him with her leg while she stretched in her sleep, making him hit the ground and wake up. Victor, who was a little surprised, chuckled warmly as he woke up and then used his phone to take a photo of his sleeping ex-sister. Saving Arya was one of his primary goals after returning, and now he did it, which made him feel very relieved. He gently kissed her forehead and then left the room. She seemed to have been very tired as she was deep asleep. After changing his clothes with a set from his ring, Victor made his way downstairs while inspecting the mansion. This place was not bad, but he might need to find suitable servants for it. And for security reasons, the family would only approve of him using servants trained by them on the islands. As if the family was not already 20% infiltrated. Despite being too early, Lily and her sisters were awake in the living room, chatting and laughing about some things. When they saw Victor, they quickly stood up in respect and saluted, while Lily jumped to his side. "Were you satisfied last night, young master?" she asked him, cheekily. "Yes, I decided to use Arya instead of you from now on," he said, making Lily freeze in shock as she looked at her young master. He doesn't want her anymore. But she quickly realized that he was joking with her when she noticed the playful gaze in his eyes. "Bad young master," she cursed silently as she hugged her arm and rested her head on his shoulder, making her sisters chuckle a little. She promised to give them a chance with the young master. "Where is Kai?" Victor asked while looking at the smiling girls. They were pretty, ranging from 16% to 24% degrees on the Lily scale. "I am here, young master." A wild Kai appeared out of nowhere, startling Victor. He seemed to be hiding from Lily. "After Arya wakes up, take her with the girls to the admin building to register them as my assistants and to remove the seal on the girls. Then buy them some clothes," Victor said, looking at the white sacrificial dresses the girls were still wearing. "And what about you, young master?" Kai asked. "I will go have breakfast with my mother and spend the day there, with Lily," he said as he hugged Lily, who smiled sweetly under the veil. "Understood," Kai said while cursing at Lily silently. "Now you act like a sweet lovely girl. The young master should have seen how savage you were yesterday when you kicked me." "Let's go," he told Lily as they headed to the door. "Do you need me to get you a car, young master?" Kai asked. "No, we will walk there," Victor said as he took Lily's hand and walked out of the door. Ellipsis. Victor hasn't had a chance to look around the island since his return. He was running from one place to another, so having some time with Lily while enjoying the scenes from his childhood was a really precious time for him. This island was very beautiful. It had a main road with manors on all sides branching in all directions. Most of the family's elite and elders have homes on islands like this to keep their wives and children safe and instruct them in the family's art. When Victor got near his father's mansion, he heard someone shouting, "Hey, you, stop." An arrogant voice woke Victor from his trance, making him look back with surprise. Were they talking to him? Who dares to tell an elite heir to stop? Don't they want to keep their heads? It was a hot woman with pink hair, a skimpy dress, and high heels. She walked to his side with difficulty and then pointed arrogantly. "Go get this lady a car. Where are the other servants here? I have been walking for 10 whole minutes. And why don't cell phones work here?" She demanded arrogantly as she rubbed her ankle. "And you come, massage my shoulders," she said to Lily. Victor quickly understood that she took him as a servant. He was dressing very casually after all because he only had these clothes in his ring. And it was still 5:30 a.m. The normal servants are just waking up. "May I know to which house the lady belongs?" he asked her politely. He really wanted to know which idiot brought a girl here without explaining the rules. I am young Master Rex's wife. I wanted to ask some servant to drive me from harbor, but who knows that there were none. You were the first one I encountered. I should have just waited as my husband told me to, but I wanted to surprise him," she said. "I have to head to his father's mansion. It must be somewhere here," she added proudly while looking around, making Victor curse at her. Rex was his half-brother, the second son of his father's first wife, and Luke's brother. It was him or his older brother Max behind the reduction ruin trick. Rex was a semi-player and didn't have a house here, so he should have brought this slut here to introduce her to his father and mother. As the rules state that if any family member wishes to marry, he must get the approval of his parents, the patriarch, or the elders console. "Didn't Rex warn you to be low-key?" Victor asked her. "And what does that have to do with you? Go get me a car now, or I will complain. Rex told me that the punishments around here are very severe. Be careful I don't order someone to punish you," she yelled, making Victor wonder if he should get angry or laugh. His brother was warning her, not telling her. "Lady, have you noticed that I have purple hair?" he asked, trying to make her realize her fault, to avoid the embarrassment. "Why would I care what color you dye your hair? Now go do your job, or I would not only tell my husband to punish you, but I would tell him that the lazy bitch on your side has insulted me too. Maybe both of you should suffer some whipping," she yelled and threatened as she was getting impatient, wanting to reach her in-laws' house to impress them. Not realizing that she has just touched Victor's reverse scale. "I can't touch her. You do it," he told Lily, who nodded, going to the surprised woman's side, then smacked her face to the ground, then slapped her a few times before she returned to her young master's side, while that woman screamed, "Just you wait, I will." She stopped and swallowed the words she intended to say after Lily gave her a death stare. "Shall I drag her with us?" she asked while tilting her head. "No need, let's go," Victor said as he held Lily's left hand. He was tempted to drag that woman from her hair, but that would only make Rex instruct Luke to take revenge on his little sister. "Was I a little too cruel? She is your sister-in-law after all," asked Lily in a low voice. "No, this is just the beginning. Remember this, all my half-brothers and stepmothers are my enemies. Never trust them," he replied in a low voice, making Lily nod in confirmation. The mansion was a few turns away, and when Victor approached it, the guards at the door saluted respectfully and opened the door with some fear. They couldn't believe that the weakling young master they made fun of secretly became an elite heir. "He can order their death with a flick of his finger." Victor nodded to them with a smile, then entered the mansion's grounds. It was the same walls, the same trees, and the same people, but he was different, and he had Lily by his side. The first one to greet him was his youngest sister Lara, who was busy training with a wooden sword when she noticed him. "Ah, esteemed brother," she bowed flusteredly, putting away her sword. "Don't be formal," Victor said as he approached her and hugged her tightly, making her blush. "Don't, brother, I am sweaty," she said, but Victor hugged her tighter. He didn't get a chance to do this before, as it would look unnatural. Lara was one of the few who respected Victor in the family and treated him well. Too bad that she didn't survive her ceremony, and Victor believed that it had something to do with his half-brothers. Sadly, at that time, he was just a semi-player when he attended her funeral with his father and mother. Victor could still remember Luke's strange look at that time. Victor would have never suspected that Luke, his brother, was behind this. He was too naive back then. But even if he did, he could do nothing. As Luke was a player at that point. Victor stepped back and looked at his little sister's embarrassed face with a smile, then he frowned. Her hair color was purple, but the hue was wrong. Others couldn't tell as no two Von Weisses had the same hue in their purple hair. Victor's was a little grayish. But this shift was wrong, he could easily tell. It was the difference between vibrant colors and dead ones. So he activated his appraisal skill. Lara Von Weiss. STR 13. Int 19. Luck 9. Charm 27. Fate. Fate's power. E. Fate's direction. Negative. Fate's design. Uncertain demise. Total. E. Bloodline Elder Dragon 27.1% purity decreasing semi-exhausted. What's wrong with her bloodline? Victor silently exclaimed as he frowned, making Lara scared a little. Many said that her brother was a pervert, but she knew that he was not. He was the coolest brother in the world. He always took care of her and faced her first mother when she yelled at her. Esteemed brother, is there anything wrong? She asked nervously. Yes, we will talk later. He said as he smiled again and then petted her hair. This is Lily, your future sister-in-law, Victor said as he turned and pointed at Lily, making Lara look at her with surprise then bow politely. Nice to meet you, esteemed sister-in-law, she said as she blushed, making Lily blush more. Don't call me that, just call me Lily, Lily said, hugging her new sister-in-law. Nice to meet you, Sister Lily, Lara replied with a sweet smile. Let's go inside, Victor said as he headed to the mansion's door. Is everyone awake? He asked Lara. No, father brought Sister Iris and cousin Zoe with him yesterday. Then brother Rex returned too. They were staying late talking about how cousin Zoe grew up in the mountains and how Uncle Falcon told her about her true roots. I wanted to stay and listen too. But, the esteemed first mother made me go to bed. Lara said as she puffed her cheeks. Ha, ha, it's okay, I will tell you many tales later. Victor said as he entered the mansion. To encounter Adele at the entrance. His father's favorite maid was waiting near the door. She seemed to have noticed him when he was talking with Lara and chose to wait here. Despite not being that old. This woman was very thoughtful. No wonder his father usually leaves her here to manage the mansion and maybe spy on his wives. Name, Adele. Level, 39. Class, Maid++. Abnormal status, Slave weak. Authority, 3. Strength, 90. Agility, 90. Intelligence, 80. Luck, 24. Charm, 29. Order, 17. Skills, Cooking S. Staff Arts A. Brewing A. Cleaning A. Projectile B. Cello Arts B. Knife Arts B. Management B. Quick Steps C. Hide Breath D. Surveying E. Drawing F. Equipment, Protection Talisman B. Fate Status, Fate's Power, B. Fate's Direction, Neutral, Fate's Design, Unspecified, Total, B. Young Master Victor, nice to meet you again, and congratulations on your superb results in the ceremony. She said as she bowed. The master is still asleep, so the breakfast would be delayed for another hour or two. Would you like to rest in your room or the living room? She asked him while inspecting Lily while wondering what is her relationship with Victor. I will go with Lara to her room and wait there, as I have much to tell her. Victor said, oh, and there was a crazy woman down the road, she must be Rex's new wife. Send someone to fetch her before she loses her head. He added as he took the smiling Lara's hand and headed to her room with Lily, while Adele quickly gestured to a guard to check the road. Chapter 110. Exhausted. Victor accompanied Lara to her room, which was on the second floor. The room was classically decorated without any flavor. If Victor didn't know, he would never believe that this is a little girl's room. He sighed as he looked at his blushing sister, who was strictly taught since childhood. He would have never noticed anything before, he was too naive. Sit beside me, he asked her, and she complied. Why aren't there any teddy bears here? He asked. I remember I brought you one last year. He said. She hesitated. Come on, tell me. And don't lie, he said after noticing her habit of pinching her palm when she wants to lie. The first mother said that a true Von Weiss didn't need such things. She punished me when she saw any toys in the room, she said while lowering her head. So that's it. He said. Didn't mother question you about this? He asked. She did, but I just told her that this is the way I like it. I didn't want her to have a fight with the first mother. Whenever that happens, our brothers would start bullying me. And mother would be sad. She said with a few teardrops falling on her clenched fists, making Lily, who was standing respectfully by the door, show a murderous look. You should have told mother anyway. He said he is very familiar with his stepmother's and brother's bullying techniques. They didn't appear to be bullying, just a random harsh word every once in a while, and maybe asking the servants to ignore Lara's commands. Nothing major, but to a delicate girl like Lara, it was a huge deal. Victor sighed. After his father sent him to boarding school, his half-brothers and stepmothers must have used the opportunity to bully his sister. This girl has never left the island before and was too pure and naive. It's okay. Don't listen to anyone. You should have all the toys you want, he said as he petted her hair. Now tell me, when did you start having pain when you were training? He asked to make Lara flinch and then lower her head more. It was about a year ago, she answered meekly. Why didn't you tell anyone? He asked. When Brother Rex explained the art to me, he told me that if I felt any pain, that means I am a loser and not a true Von Weiss. Esteemed father has tasked him with supervising my training, she said with hesitation, making Victor get really angry. So, I was afraid. The pain is barely noticeable now, I am getting better, she said as she raised her small fist. Run the family art you use, he said with a frown while trying very hard to hide the murderous look in his eyes. The embarrassed Lara stood up and started making random stances, beautifully flowing from one to another under Victor's inspecting gaze. After 5 minutes she began to sweat a little. You can stop, he said, making her stop and take a deep breath. No wonder no one noticed anything wrong. The technique was modified, Victor thought as he watched the blood flow in her veins through his inspection skill, making him clench his fists hard. Did anyone other than Rex guide your training? He asked. Esteemed father sometimes would supervise me, and he would praise my movements. Aunt Adele would do that too, she said proudly, making Victor smack her head. Who told you to focus on the nape of your neck when practicing the art? He asked. I can't remember. Oh. It was Brother Luke. He said that it would make the training easier, and it did. I was not able to complete the moves at first, but after I listened to him and tried his technique I got better. Esteemed father praised me after that, she said with a smile. Did anyone touch your neck while you trained? Victor asked her. No, why would they? Yes. Sometimes Brother Rex would wipe away my sweat when I needed to keep a stance for a long period of time, she said while tilting her head, feeling something was wrong. She would have never believed that her brother wanted her dead. Not only did they make her modify the technique, but they also did it in stages and by random comments and movements. Rex must have used some kind of technique to attract pure blood to that area. Victor was really angry. Whoever modified this art was a supreme expert. The art was created to increase the purity of the dragon blood by helping it burn the normal blood, then using the energy to nurture the body. It only increased the percentage by about 1 to 5% each year, and it got harder the more the blood became purer. The problem with the modified technique is that instead of focusing on the whole body, it focused on the nape of the neck where the purest blood essence was being attracted, making the training easier because burning essence blood would grant the air a huge boost of energy and intelligence, but it exhausted it in the process. And after a year or so it would cause pain in the body, as the decreased dragon blood volume would starve the dragon cells that she was born with. The pain will subside and then vanish when all of those cells die, rendering Lara weaker than a mortal. From now on, forget all about what Luke and Rex told you. It was all wrong. They are idiots. It was harming you. Didn't you notice that you get tired very easily lately? He said, making Lara gasp and then nod. Indeed, she could only do 20 to 30 sword swings lately, while she used to do about 100 easily. She thought it was just some sickness. What shall I do? She asked with tears in her eyes. She completely believed her brother. First stop practicing the art, he said while wondering how to fix this. And if he should confront Rex directly. No, Rex was not the mastermind, he must find who it is. It may be his older half-brother Max. But he is not sure and he must not startle the snake. Victor decided to hide the fact that they were trying to kill her. She was not ready to hear the truth yet. And she would definitely reveal something if she knew. I have a solution, but don't tell anyone what I am about to teach you. It is a secret. If anyone knew, the family would punish me. And both Rex and Luke would also be punished severely for being incompetent, he said, making his sister nod repeatedly. Although her brothers were harsh, she wouldn't want them to be hurt. The family's punishment is brutal. A few days ago a cousin named Titus was pinned on a stick naked and then drained of his blood in public. They said he would have to serve as a blood bag for a few years. Victor didn't know what Lara was thinking about, he just began to explain a set of moves to her. They were similar to the family's art yet different. But she was able to learn them very quickly. This technique was developed by him to restore his dragon blood. But it failed, as he had not even one drop left. But Lara was in better shape. This technique would let the dragon blood eat the normal blood instead of burning it. It will rapidly increase her blood purity. If father asked you to perform the family art, just use the regular one and stop focusing on your neck. It is harming you, Victor said. Then after giving it a thought he purchased a dispelling talisman from the system store and then took it out of his pocket. Ah, this is the same thing esteemed brother Rex used to wipe my sweat with, Lara exclaimed, making Victor frown, so it is some kind of talisman. He didn't know what he was doing. Close your eyes, Victor said as he inspected her neck but found nothing unusual by sight alone. Just that the area seemed to attract special blood. Even the blood in his hands started acting strangely when he touched her neck. When he activated his appraisal he quickly saw what was wrong. A hidden mark was drawn on her neck. It spelled the word blood and was surrounded by some otherworldly symbols. This thing was not a product of this world. It must have been found in a dungeon. Just like the reduction rune. He quickly put the talisman on her neck and activated it. Blood attraction phantom mark found. Attempting dispelling. Required authority F to 10. Sufficient authority found. Dispelling mark. Mark dispelled. After that Victor proceeded to guide her technique movements while telling her how he met Lily and fell in love with her, making Lily who was standing near the door blush deeply. Lara was a little skeptical at first, but after finishing a complete set of movements she felt amazing, and a little hungry at the same time, as her tummy rumbled. It really worked. She noticed the difference immediately. The dull pain in her joints has faded a little. And she felt more energetic. Victor wanted to smile but he couldn't. Although his art would increase the volume of the dragon blood, the essential blood would still be exhausted for at least 10 years. And Lara didn't have that time. Her ceremony would be in 2 years. The system did have a blood replenishing pill but sadly it only replenished normal blood, not the dragon one. Wait, he can use the blood he got from Dick. But that would have to wait, as brewing a blood pill was a tiresome job, and Lara's body was too exhausted to handle it right now. From now on if anyone is bullied you just give me a phone call. He told her as he rubbed her hair then stood up just as a maid knocked on the door and then entered while looking around. She has been here for a while spying on them, but heard nothing because he was using his disguise skill. She thought that they might have fallen asleep or sneaked out. The breakfast is ready, and the master requests your attendance. She flusteredly said as she bowed down. Go ahead, I have to tell the maid something, Victor told Lara, who nodded obediently and then went downstairs. She would never dare be late after her esteemed father summoned her. Victor stood up and approached the nervous maid. Then slapped her face hard, making her hit the wall and begin bleeding from her mouth and nose. The next time I ever catch you spying on me or my sister again, I will make sure to send you to the prison island. He said, making the poor maid shiver. Victor knew that she was just following her mistress's orders but he had to make the servants fear him, or they would bully his sister. He held Lily's hand after that and went downstairs for the second breakfast with the family since his return. This time he will not be timid, on the contrary, he would be an arrogant young master. He felt strange as if he was floating on the clouds. But the yelling sound made him wake up and look at the fluorescent lamp over his head. Confess what gang you belong to. Where is your area of activity? Who is your boss? A woman was yelling. Officer Lee, I told you before, I was set up. You can view the security tapes. I am the victim here. Some guys argued. Where am I? The hospital, he wondered as he looked around. He was in a room with another guy who was being pestered by a female officer. Is this a cosplay? He wanted to inspect her butt, but a dull pain made him grimace. Why does his crotch hurt? Was that little girl too rough with him? He couldn't remember. He did pay a premium for her though. Was he too exhausted after that? Did they need to hospitalize him or was this place a part of the brothel? No, this was definitely a hospital. He confirmed that when he looked through the opened door onto the hallway, where many nurses and doctors were walking in a hurry. Well, this is a VIP treatment, it is worth every penny I paid. Wait, the money, he thought as he looked around not finding his back, he wanted to sit up but that made his crotch hurt badly. Ah, he yelled, making the police officer notice that he was awake. I will be back for you later, Mr. Oliver, we will need your statement. The governor has ordered that all cases about perverts need to be reviewed after some pervert attacked his daughter. Lee said as she went to the other bed. Name, she asked him. Quote. Abe, he replied after some hesitation. Did his mother report the missing money? Or was the brothel raided? Did you see who did that to you? She asked with a disgusted look. Did what? I don't remember anything and I am just a little exhausted, he asked while wondering if she was baiting him. He didn't even know that girl's name. She called herself Ruby. Ah, it must be the morphine affecting your judgment. They didn't tell you yet, did they? She turned around looking for a doctor or a nurse but found none, while Abe frowned. Well, yesterday someone assaulted the brothel you were visiting. And castrated all the men there, after killing all the guards. She said. What? Officer, you are wrong. I don't visit such places and have nothing to do with this. He said while sweating. That girl was too young. He knew it, but he will not fall for the police trap. Oh, well, you would never go there again in this lifetime anyway. I will return to take your statement when your head is clearer. My condolences, she said as she left the room just as a doctor entered with 2 hot nurses. They gave Abe and the guy on the other bed a sorrowful look. You are awake, the doctor said as he looked at a report with a frown. Decrease the morphine dose a little. It's too high, he told the nurse. When will I be discharged, doctor? He asked. He wanted to go back to the brothel to ask about the money bag. They wouldn't steal it in such a highly reputed establishment, would they? Ah, sir, I am sorry to inform you that you would be staying here for a few more days. The damage was so extensive that we had to cut it off completely, the doctor said with a sigh. Cut what? Abe asked, making the doctor approach him and whisper the answer in his ear. Abe needed a few seconds to comprehend it. No, a savage howl rocked the hospital's hallways. It was the 9th scream this morning.